Having a lot of fun. I think I have, like I said, great perspective on everything and excited with all the people.
There are players who come back from a lost season and look like they need time. And then there is what Caitlin Clark did on day one of Indiana Fever training camp. She walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse before practice even officially started, got on the court alone, and started shooting. Not warming up slowly, not easing into it, just shooting. Over and over. Like she had something to prove to every single person in that building. And what the rest of the WNBA saw when they watched those clips come out of Indianapolis was not a player coming back from injury. It was a player who had spent 8 months transforming into something more dangerous than she was before she left. Every team in this league should be paying very close attention right now. Because what is walking back onto that court in 2026 is not the same Caitlin Clark who went down in July of 2025. It is a version of her that has had 8 months to think, to study, to rebuild, and to arrive at something that looks a lot like controlled fury. To understand what day one actually meant, you have to understand what the 8 months before it looked like. Because this was not a quiet off-season. This was not a player sitting around waiting to heal. The moment Clark was cleared to get back on a basketball court in December 2025, she was on the first plane to Durham, North Carolina, for the USA Basketball Women's National Team training camp. No rust visible to anyone watching. She drove left off half court and elevated from the wing on the very first rep of her return and buried the shot clean. The camp was held at Duke University under new head coach Kara Lawson and managing director Sue Bird, and the energy around Clark's presence there was unlike anything else at that event. She was 100% in December. She said it herself. Not 80%, not working toward it, 100%. And that declaration landed differently from most athlete injury updates because Clark has never been someone who hides behind careful language. She means what she says. If she said 100%, it was 100%. But the December camp was just the opening act, because in March 2026, Clark suited up for the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And what she did over those 5 games rearranged the entire conversation around her comeback. In her very first game, against Senegal, she dropped 17 points and drained 4 three-pointers before anyone in that gym had time to blink. She looked like she had never missed a single day. And over the course of the entire 5-game tournament, she averaged 11.6 points and 6.4 assists per game while shooting 52.9% from the field and 40% from 3. She led the entire tournament in assists. Not just her team, the entire tournament. Team USA went 5-0, undefeated, and at the end of the event, the announcement came that stopped the WNBA world in its tracks. Caitlin Clark was named Tournament MVP. The player who had spent most of the previous year on the sideline dealing with one injury after another had just walked back onto an international stage and been the best player in the building. CBS Sports said it plainly. She looked ready to reclaim her place as one of the top guards in the entire WNBA. And that was in March, a full month before the Fever's training camp even opened. So when Clark arrived at Gainbridge Fieldhouse for day one on April 19th, the question was never really whether she was healthy. The question everyone was actually asking was whether the Caitlin Clark who came back would be the same one who left, or whether something about the experience of losing a season had changed her approach in ways that would make her even more difficult to deal with. And everything she said and everything she did on that first day answered that question as directly as it has ever been answered. She talked about how isolating it had been to come to the facility every single day during 2025. You had to spend 2 hours in treatment and rehab, then walk out and try to be a good teammate while everyone else competed. She described how much that experience had genuinely hurt her. And then she described what she did in response to that pain. She played pickup every chance she got. She ran live 5-on-5 constantly. She told people that skill workouts eventually get boring, and she just needed to compete. Everything she did in the off-season was pointed at one objective: getting back to the floor and staying there. She said she has always been the person who does not want to miss a single rep, who wants to be out there every single time, and that none of that had changed. If anything, what came through in her voice on day one was something sharper and more purposeful than that personality trait had ever sounded before. Or this was not enthusiasm. This was intention. And the WNBA should be taking that distinction very seriously. What actually has the rest of the league watching over their shoulder is not just that Clark is back, it is the system she is coming back to and what that system is now capable of doing with a fully healthy version of her running it. Stephanie White spent the entire 2025 season without Clark for most of the year, and in doing so, she was forced to figure out how this team operates without its most important player. What she discovered is that Indiana has an enormous amount of talent that was underutilized when Clark was the primary engine of everything. Aaliyah Boston had to become the center of the offense, and in doing so, she showed the world that she is far more capable as a facilitator and creator than anyone had given her credit for. White has publicly compared the role she wants Boston to play to Nikola Jokic, not in size or physicality, but in function. The hub of the offense, the player who receives the ball and reads the defense and creates for everyone around her, whether from the post, from the trail, or from the perimeter. When you add Clark's movement and shooting back into that framework, the Indiana offense becomes something that opposing defenses essentially cannot guard without giving something up every single time down the floor. Boston pulls defenders into the paint. Clark spaces the floor and forces closeouts. And Kelsey Mitchell attacks every closeout with the kind of downhill aggression that leads directly to three-point shots or free throws. Sophie Cunningham stands in the corner and makes opposing coaches genuinely anxious because she is shooting 43% from three, and she will absolutely punish you if you leave her open. There is no good answer to any of those individual problems. And when they are all on the floor simultaneously with Clark distributing, the equation becomes nearly unsolvable. The rest of the league knows this. And the body language coming out of opposing camps since the Fever's training camp opened has been telling. Let's be real about what Indiana looks like on paper right now. They reached the WNBA semifinals last year without Clark in the lineup for 31 of those 44 games. Think about that for a second. They fought the Las Vegas Aces, the defending champions, all the way to 5 games in the semifinals without their best player and still nearly made the finals. Now Clark is back at 100% and already has tournament MVP hardware from her return to international play. Boston just signed the highest total value contract in WNBA history at $6.3 million over 4 years. A statement from the franchise that she is a cornerstone, not a compliment. Mitchell is back on a supermax deal. Hull is back. Cunningham is back. Raven Johnson brings elite perimeter defense from the bench at a position that previously had no defensive answer. This roster, fully assembled and fully healthy, is built differently from anything Indiana has fielded in the modern era of the franchise. And the teams that have to guard them, the Minnesota Lynx, the Las Vegas Aces, the New York Liberty, are all looking at that lineup and doing the math on how they stop it when it is operating the way White has designed it. There is also something happening with Clark personally that is worth paying attention to, because it goes beyond the basketball and speaks to the kind of player she is becoming at this stage of her career. Back in 2025, when she returned from that 5-game absence due to a left quad strain and was asked about minute restrictions heading into her return game against the New York Liberty, she called the concept silly. Flat out, no qualifications. Minute restrictions are silly, she said, and she told the coaching staff she did not want to come back unless she was going full go. White laughed when she heard that. Of course she did, White said. But here is what is different now. When Clark talked about her health at day 1 of 2026 camp, she acknowledged that she needed to be smarter about her body. She talked about the intentionality behind her off-season preparation, the long hours she put in with her trainer Maria Vida, building a program specifically designed to minimize injury risk, the pre-court treatment and recovery routines she was committing to before and after every single practice session. She still has the fire. She still does not want to miss a single rep. But she has clearly added a layer of body awareness and self-management to that competitive drive that was not there before she went through what she went through in 2025. That evolution matters more than almost any technical development she could have made over the offseason. A player with Clark's physical tools and basketball IQ who also now understands how to take care of herself across the duration of a long season is a genuinely scary combination. Aaliyah Boston captured it perfectly on day 1 when she was asked about seeing Clark back on the floor. She smiled and said, "Caitlin is Caitlin." She pointed out that when they were together at the Team USA camp, Clark looked like herself, fully, completely herself. And Boston said that seeing that made her genuinely happy, because she understood how hard it had been for Clark mentally and physically to go through an entire lost season. And watching her come back and flip the page and be ready to go said everything about who Clark is as a competitor. And Stephanie White, the person responsible for managing all of this, the talent, the expectations, the injury risk, the pressure, had one overriding message on day one of camp. The aim is to play faster. The depth they now have on this roster is going to allow them to push the pace in ways that last year's depleted rotation simply could not sustain. More stops, more rebounds, more transition offense, more relentless attacking basketball. And with Clark healthy at the point guard position running that system, the pace Indiana can generate is something that a significant portion of the WNBA is going to struggle to match. The honest answer to the question of what Caitlin Clark's Day 1 performance means for the rest of the league is uncomfortable if you play for any team that has to step on the floor against the Fever this season. It means the most dangerous offensive player in women's basketball is back. It means she has had 8 months to evolve in ways that were not possible when she was playing through pain and managing injuries. It means the team around her is arguably deeper and more capable than it has ever been, with a coach who now has a full year of experience running this system and a clear vision of exactly how to maximize every single person on the roster. There is no version of the 2026 WNBA season where Indiana is not in the conversation for a championship. And after watching what Clark did on day one before the cameras even had time to fully set up, the question is not whether the Fever can compete for a title. The question is whether anyone in this league is actually built to stop them when everything goes right. Based on what came out of that gym on April 19th, the answer to that question is not obvious. And for every other team in the WNBA, that uncertainty is the most frightening thing of all.